All right. Thank you all so much for joining us here this afternoon. We're going to get started with our third budget workshop. We are going to begin with the presentation of the town justice budget.
Good to be. I guess then Judge Gagnelli can chime in whenever. I guess the first question I would have actually has to relate to this year's budget. Because our full-time clerk line right now we're at 91% when we should be at 75%. Because apparently what we didn't know last year when we put the budget together was that a retirement was going to trigger an early retirement incentive and vacation and sick payouts coming out of that line, which my understanding is that's not how it's worked in the past. This is the first time I've had a full-time employee retire in 14 years. So I wasn't aware that that would happen. And I talked to other department heads who said that doesn't normally happen. So my concern is obviously with that coming out of my line, and we didn't budget for it last year, we're going to run out of money on that line soon. Is there some mechanism for addressing that? Should that have been budgeted in our budget last year?
So, hi, this is a very good question, and that's what happened to, do you mind if I take it off?
No, just make sure that mic is on over there for you so other people can hear. Thanks, Ismat.
Okay, so what had happened is that we offered the voluntary retirement incentive. So the buyout and the budget, and their, the incentive was paid out of each department.
Is
But-
that normally how it happens though?
This is, accounting wise, this is always happens,
Okay.
absolutely. But we also promised that with the savings, that's going to be supplemental to, it will go back to your department to some extent.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that you'll be fine for the rest of the year.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying, yeah. And that's what I told all the department
Yeah,
heads.
I don't want to run out of money on that line. They're the only thing standing between us
Nope.
and chaos. So, okay.
I promised you that, no, it's not going to happen, Judge.
Okay. All right, I was expecting it to, I just got the October 1
I know.
and it's still,
What, we, at the end of the
Looking
year, we do the salary adjustments.
Okay.
So don't worry about it. You
Okay.
you are not in red.
all right. When we met previously, we had identified some reductions we thought we could make in the budget, specifically with respect to police overtime. Part of it is looking at our actuals over the past few years. We had been budgeting about $11,000 in overtime when we had been closer to $7,000 to $8,000 in actuals. So we had reduced that, and that's in the tentative. What we had asked for was we actually want to consolidate our 2 part-time clerk positions into 1 full-time clerk position. We're anticipating our second retirement early next year, and we want to get a replacement trained as soon as possible while we still have 2 full-timers. Obviously, it takes twice as long to train a part-timer as it does a full-timer, because we know we're going to have this new position as a backfill in Q2. Because we know we're going to have that position as a backfill in the second quarter, we wanted to hire that as a full-time. So we'd have 3 full-time clerks, no part-time, as opposed to right now we have 2 full-time, 2 part-time. That isn't in the tentative budget.
Correct. So anything that's extraneous, I don't know why I'm
don't know.
hearing myself echoing. So those are going to be additional schedules that are going to be circulated to the town board for purposes of the preliminary. So the tentative didn't include really any extras, so to speak, for lack of a better term. But that is something that we are going to compile on a separate schedule that will be.
Whatever
Yep.
the next version is.
Yep.
I saw all the negatives and none of the positives. That's
Right.
my concern.
Right.
But you have brought that up before, I believe, correct? That this was, you were trying to plan for that. Is that right?
Well, since last year, we had been trying to plan for the backfill of our first retirement. we didn't know until recently we were going to have a second retirement coming, fairly quickly on its heels. Right now, we only have one of the two part-time clerk positions filled. That was part of our 4% target, was not backfilling the second part-time clerk, in part because we spent a chunk of 2021 shut down.
Right.
So we could get by at that point with only one part-time clerk and the two full-timers. What's that?
So this is a question of procedure now. Should they be, using the form that you've had some other department heads use for possibly of new hires and or changing? You did that.
Submitted it with the budget.
Okay. Okay, that is in here. Oh, there it is. Yes. Okay. So you'll work on whatever those numbers are, correct?
Right, so all the requests will be consolidated and be provided next week.
Thank you.
Yeah, and my understanding was also we had to go to civil service to create a third full-time clerk position before we could get it in the budget. So I know that was tentatively going to happen in September. I don't know if it happened or not, but for whatever that's worth.
Okay.
Any questions?
Judge, you will notice that we have kept your part-time money in there. If
Right.
the town board agrees to consolidate that, then we just the money that we do partially.
Right.
So maybe you could just explain your thinking of having the 3 full-timers versus 2 full and 2 part-time.
I think given how soon our second retirement is going to come, it takes twice as long to train a part-timer because they're part-time. I would rather get a full-time in there because we know we're going to use that person right away to backfill our second retirement.
Mm-hmm. Is it your intention to stay that way, or is it your intention to go back to 2 and 2?
I think it makes more sense 3 full, no part than it is 2 full, 2 part. The training process is burdensome to our existing clerks. I mean, there are a number of systems they have to learn with DCJS, with DMV. Right. So I'd rather have them spend their time training as few people as possible and keep them longer. And I did call around to 3 court clerks that I know, 1 in a city court, 2 in town courts, about potentially trying to poach someone because that's the easiest way to get a trained person. We don't pay enough, to be perfectly frank. The 2 town clerks that I spoke with both make more now than our job rate for this line. And the city court clerk makes considerably more, but that's a state paid position, so that wasn't that big a surprise. But we do have someone in mind who is interested. So hopefully if we have the position, we can get them in as soon as possible.
Thanks for clarifying all that.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
You?
No, I think we did ask for an increase.
Okay, so like everybody else, they came and they talked about their department, the year they had, their victory, whatever it may very well be. We didn't just come and talk about one position. So did you guys have a broader?
Well, I can tell you that
I don't want to short shrift you, because in the past I've heard about things later and, so.
the Justice Court is, how would I say it, has had to adapt with a number of changes over the last year, not mostly because of COVID, working remotely. We anticipate that particularly the moratorium on evictions has been extended, but those are a bunch of chickens that are going to come home to roost. At present, tonight is Wednesday. I have my regular calendar. Tomorrow, I'll deal with whatever evictions may be eligible to be heard, any other civil matters before the court. So we're now on two nights. And while the docket for tomorrow night will be light, it may not have any. But I anticipate come January, it's going to be very busy. And that only underscores what we've been talking about in terms of we need the help. And this is highly skilled help. This is someone who, as Stephen was talking about, is going to have to know how to deal with the Department of Motor Vehicles, the state of New York, because there's a whole program with that, I mean, Stephen and I have had the training, and it's, you know, I think it'd give Albert Einstein a nosebleed. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So what we're anticipating is more work, and just more work in terms of people coming through the door, and the same amount of time to get it done.
Sure.
And we're going to have to work on the backlog on top of that. And I've discussed with some of you the centralized arraignment program. That's a whole nother animal. I mean, mostly if you can get it off your plate, we'll deal with the county on that. So, and to say nothing of the reforms that have been implemented by our New York State legislature. So this is a transitional period for us. There's a lot, we're anticipating a lot more work. And I think we're going to see, now that the courts are going in person, we're going to see some more pretrial hearings and trials.
Jury trials.
Jury trials. Yeah.
We're now cleared to do them. We had to
Yeah,
wait until the
yeah.
county court could hold two. So I got my first one scheduled for December.
Okay.
So, thanks.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next we have community programs budget with Lori Peretti.
Hello. Okay, first I want to talk about the achievements for the Community Programs Department for 2021. It was an outstanding year for our programs. Often we had wait lists on programs that never filled up. Our summer playground program was always at capacity. Swim lessons, everything just was through the roof. Everybody wanted to get out, so appreciative. And it was probably, in my 13 years, the best year we've ever had in the department. So, and I'm hoping next year it will just snowball. So I was thrilled about that. We offered 15 camps for youth and adult to record numbers and serviced over 800 people. Submitted and received 4 grant applications totaling $8,200. Instituted 4 additional movie nights. Last year we only had 1. This year we had 4, with another one coming in the fall. And we keep getting phone calls from people because it's just a fun thing to do, to sit out on the green and, you know, watch a movie. So our goals for this year is to continue and offer fresh and new programming. As things become stale, we'll pull them out, add new ones. COVID's been kind of a hindrance because there's only certain things that you can do, but we're constantly working to reinvent ourselves. And our residents are our number one priority. So we just want to make sure that they're served, they're happy, and all the kids are happy. For the senior center, they had an outstanding 2021. All during the pandemic, the seniors were their number one priority. They called, wrote letters to anyone who could not come to the center because of COVID. And because of that, the seniors felt like they were still part of a community, not shut out in their home. And it was just amazing. And because of that, they had the meal program has gone through the roof. They partnered with Gershon's, served a fantastic meal to all the seniors, have gone from serving 15 seniors a day to up to 60, which is unheard of. So what these girls have done over there is mind-blowing. Exercise, like hybrid. At one point, it was all virtual. They never stopped. They just constantly kept going. I'm sorry, this is driving me insane. And their goals, as always, are to continue to serve the seniors with a smile and the love that they deserve. All right, now dip into my budget. I have the original budget, so mine was on page 12. And it's the community programs admin 7020. The only thing I did have a question about was the part-time services. It looks like it's the same as last year, so is there no COLA for part-time staff?
That's like the other requests, they're going to be put on a separate schedule for purposes of the preliminary.
Okay, wonderful.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Because that was my concern. I mean, they
Mhm.
went 1 year without, but
Right.
they give their heart and soul.
Yeah.
All right, and so everything else in that department stays the same from the year before. There's been no changes. All right, the next one is the community center, 7140. Everything except for utilities is the same. And utilities are something that are given to me from the Comptroller's office because it fluctuates. So basically, this is just the same as last year. All right, next is the town pool, 7180. This is basically the same as you'll see in the first two lines with personal services for public swim and swim lessons. The numbers are just transfer flip-flop from one line to the next, but it basically stays the same. We did add in, I asked to be add in another 2,000 for equipment. Our pool chairs and umbrellas do not last forever. And so we constantly have to kind of refresh, replace, just to keep everything nice and pretty. And 2,000 is not a lot to ask. And they do the best they can with what they have, but 2,000 is definitely needed. And the electricity, as I said, and the utilities are the only things that have changed. Everything else has stayed the same. And I will add that looking at my numbers from now, our pool was in the black. To me, is always a bonus. I was like to look at, the receipts and the expenditures. So it's a good year for everybody. Next is the swim team, 7182. The only thing that changed is the personal services, and that went up from 92 to 10.5, and that is close to what we spent this year, which is 10.3. So that's, I think, the only reason for the increase. But other than that, everything stayed the same. And if I'm just going too fast and you have any questions, let me know. I tend to talk quickly. Next is the driving range, 7185. The driving range had an outstanding year this year. We have brought in 10,000 more than we have spent. And we're able to extend the season for weekends only through the end of October. So, we've got a gem up there, and we figured as long as we weren't, the Ray and his guys would mow just once a week, we could keep it over while the weather is still nice. So, and everything in here stayed exactly the same. Youth fall rec soccer, 7311. That's currently in progress, but it just started. Everything is staying the same as the year before. And we were able to, at a slightly modified version, run that program this year by staggering teams on different fields, but still making sure that everybody who registered had a spot on the team. So we were thrilled with that. Spring soccer, 7313. We were not able to run it this year due to COVID, but I am confident that next spring we will be back out on the field, and that stays the same. 7314 youth playground program had an outstanding year this year, outstanding. And there I have a decrease in personal services only because we went down from 5 sites to 3, but we were still able to service all the kids and just add additional staff. So beyond thrilled about that. For 7319 youth rec contractual programs, all of these expenses are mirrored in my revenues. So as we had like an outstanding year in tennis, we brought in that much more to, like if I went over my budget, but we brought the money in to cover it. Am I making sense? So there's no matter how good the program does, we'll just bring in that much more revenue. And next, 7550. My two items are the miscellaneous and contractual. I asked to bump up that from 3,500 to 6,000 to cover the cost of having to license movies for movie night. But we are also looking for, I know, it's ridiculous.
Unbelievable. I want to get into this market when I,
me
in
about
my
it.
retirement job.
$350 for a night. So,
I know.
and even for like, you could get like Bad News Bears. It's the same
It's the
thing.
same. I thought I picked old movies because I thought I would be better, but the only old movie that is not under a license that I think anybody would want to watch is Wizard of Oz,
There you go.
right? That's
Good.
the,
No, I'm glad you told me that. I might be showing that.
I know we might be showing it at Christmas or, the holiday
Right.
babysitting night or whatever. I know.
It's ridiculous. But so I added that in, but we've been contacted by a number of places that would love to sponsor. Community Foundation is one of them that love to sponsor our events. So
That's what I thought for the ones at the pool. I mean, the ones at the pool were gangbusters. I mean, people begged us. This is what they wanted. So I definitely think that we could get sponsors for those
absolutely.
on the popcorn bag, whatever it may very well be.
Everything,
I know.
Anything.
I
I
know.
know. So I'm confident that we could totally make that up in the in revenue. And everything else in that, the fun run, I know we didn't have it this year.
I know.
I know. One of my main helpers, his wife was terminally ill. And without him, I just could not effectively run I mean, he's basically my guy on the street, my guy up here, getting the race started. Couldn't do it without him and didn't feel like I wanted to do it halfway. So, and nobody was doing hybrids or nobody was doing virtual races anymore. So I didn't want to look like Miss 2020. So we put it off for a year and we're picking it up with gangbusters next year. So it'll be back on. And miscellaneous, actually, I went over that. Okay, so both of those were covered. Senior recreation. I had a question about the COLA, but I will address that again with a form.
Great.
Okay. Everything is basically the same except for the meal program. Now, as I
Which
said-
one?
Pardon me?
The meal program?
Meal program.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have like a handout just so you'll have it to digest. The meal program was changed when Ann Tracy had retired. We
Right.
went from having
Right.
someone cooking-
Meals,
Yeah.
stroganoffs and yeah.
Exactly. To actually ordering.
Right.
Per person. So there was no waste. There was no spending of money for food that ended up in the freezer.
Right.
So even though the number looks high, you'll also be getting.
A corresponding number. I mean, this is what we always say about the pool, about the snack bar, about whatever it is. There are these numbers in here, but there's corresponding numbers to revenue that comes in. We're
Exactly.
not spending any money on ice cream at the pool that we're not then making back. So,
Absolutely, exactly. So even though the number looks high, that's why you look in the revenue, we'll be bringing it back in.
right. And people are seeing the emails. I mean, we're all sharing them and they
Oh, yeah.
register for the lunch, get your Gershons. I know.
Quite a deal, I know.
I
And
know.
I've heard they're tasty and it's just a wonderful, wonderful program.
Yeah,
That's
folks are
the only
raving.
reason that number is as high as it is. And other than that, everything stayed exactly the same. They've been very good to stay within their budget, hoping to get trips back on the calendar once things get better.
Great.
I know I'm like
I'm-
talking like super fast. Is anyone?
No, you're not. I just want to make sure that you're talking loud enough.
I know, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Are you speaking into the microphone?
I am.
May I ask your name, please?
Lori.
Lori?
Mm-hmm. Peretti.
Oh, it doesn't look like you.
Well,
She's got a new hairdo, does it? She looks good. I know, this is why I'm asking questions loud enough.
I got my hair.
She looks great. So Lori's had a very good year, but she was just talking about the senior programs. So I just wanted to, I know.
To come to it, I left my organized budget at home. This is one that I didn't mark up, so.
I can tell you what page it's
Yeah,
on.
I'm very upset with the senior program, but that's an argument I'll have with Lori.
With me? Okay.
I didn't recognize you with your mask.
I know. I wish I didn't have to wear it, but we do. And then for receipts, on mine, it's page 20. 25. As I said, everything in my group mirrors my expenditures. So if I'm having an extra good year, I'll have more revenues. If it's not such a popular program, I won't be paying out as much. Does anyone have any questions?
Doesn't look like it. Wonderful job, Lori.
Oh, yes, good job.
Awesome, okay.
Thank you so much.
Lori, thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Did you say you had a question, Bill?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Enjoy your evening, guys.
Thanks,
too.
Good night, Lorraine.
I'll see you, hon.
All right, next we have Water and Sewer with Superintendent Mattietto.
It looks like the packet is separated by funds. So I'll start with the engineering lines, which come out of the general fund. So basically, the engineering department administers the stormwater program for the town. We see the post-closure monitoring of the town landfill. We also manage the transfer station and the recycling center and provide technical assistance to the planning department having to do with building permits and subdivision review and other development. In 2021, we were able to, as I mentioned before, we assisted the building department on numerous building permits. It was a very busy year for them. We also reviewed several subdivisions and other land development projects in the town. And we were able to bring credit card payments to the transfer station, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it really does allow for selling of permits and punch cards so that, especially on the weekends when town hall is closed, residents can still utilize that facility. It was also very helpful during COVID because it was harder for people to get into town hall because of COVID restrictions. So just being able to go to the transfer station and purchase their cards and their permits was very helpful. Also, one accomplishment, I'd like to welcome Dan Volke. He's our new senior engineer in the office. He started on Monday, and he's already been very useful, and I'm looking forward to working with him and expanding his role with our assistance with the planning department and also our management of our stormwater, and then also even with our water plant upgrades that we're working on and operation of our wastewater plant. Our goals for 2022 include completing our mapping, our GIS mapping of all of our utilities. The infrastructure is still primarily on paper maps. I'd like to get that converted over to a digital format so that our field crews have access to the data, increases efficiency and removes any errors. I'd like to make some changes with our interactions with the building department, make it more efficient. Change our role as far as some building permits, reduce some of the engineering demand that we have. Some of the smaller projects they can handle in-house. I'm going to continue to improve our transfer station. We were able to pave it this year, did some work on the structure. Like to we just added a new bathroom to the facility as well. I'd like to improve more public exposure to the facility. Now that the old building, the old water and sewer garage is gone, it's a more prominent feature in the park, and I want to be able to encourage more people to utilize it. As far as the budget for the engineering, stormwater, and transfer station.
Matt, one question. So talk to me about that. You're saying you'd like to change some things with the building department and how you're interacting with them.
He's the town engineer,
Is that on all projects or just smaller ones?
No, these are, when we have
A Kelt's Farms and all these things
yeah,
that,
but even the most simple things is sump pump. Engineering department has to look at a sump pump application. But we have to look at, someone putting a retaining wall in their backyard. We have to look at it quickly to make sure that any grading impacts would cause drainage changes. Where the discharge from their new sump pump is going to put water onto the neighbor's property. A lot of things like that could be done without an engineer having to do that. And Laura does have some people in her department that have an engineering background that, while not coming over to our side, could catch something prior to coming to us and maybe just divert that and speed up the process for building permit review. So
Okay,
that's what I meant.
that's what you meant by that. I just wanted you to clarify that. Thank you.
No problem. As far as the engineering lines, and even almost every one of our lines, I kept flat. I did not increase. You can see some movement from the 2000 line to the 4100 line under engineering. That's just moving the same money from one line to another. Any questions? Same holds true for the recycling center. We did not increase very much. I moved some money from diesel fuel to equipment maintenance because we're no longer utilizing our own truck to haul the materials away. And landfill maintenance, that's flat across. We're on the last year of a 4-year contract with Sterling Environmental. So we'll be going out for an RFP next year. Hopefully it's competitive and we'll maintain the low rate that we're able to get for our annual monitoring that's required for submission to DEC. We're able to save, I think, $1,000 a year by going on a multi-year contract.
that's great, Matt. Thank you.
So, water and sewer lines. So the water and sewer department maintains public water and sewer systems throughout the town. We operate a water treatment plant, a wastewater treatment plant, 19 sewer pump stations, 2 drinking water pumping stations, 3 water storage tanks, a total of 3.4 million gallons of storage, and hundreds of miles of water and sewer lines throughout the town. In 2021, we were able to replace the 20-inch water main on Mohawk Road, approximately 3,500 feet of water main that was most definitely at its design life. It's no longer keeping me up at night. I no longer have to worry about that line breaking because it was such a large line, high pressure line, and also had an impact on several areas when it did break. So thankful that was taken care of. We did a major rehab of our sludge dryer at our wastewater treatment plant. We awarded a contract for the design of a major modernization at our water treatment plant. And we replaced hundreds of water meters in residents and in businesses. In 2022, we would like to continue on our water main replacement program. Lines on River Road and possibly Old Troy Road are important and known to break. So that's 2 of the areas that we'd be looking at, and there's other areas that are prone to issues that we would look to replace. I had written this prior to last week, so I'm glad to say that one of our goals was to fully staff our wastewater treatment plant, which we've completed that this year. Now have 3 operators and a plant trainee, and we're fully staffed, and I'm very happy with the team that we have down there. And I was just speaking today, planning on providing training to these new members in January as part of our high strength waste program. They'll be receiving training on the system because some are new and it's been a while, and it's sort of a refresher course for them. I'd like to expand the high-strength waste acceptance at our plant to fully utilize, or to at least partially utilize the design capacity of that plant to reduce our need for energy, both natural gas and electricity, and to provide revenue to help pay for the operation of the plant. We're going to continue to replace water meters in the homes and in the businesses around town. And like I mentioned before, the design will be completed for our upgrade. They're currently at 30% stage right now for the upgrade of our water plant. It works very well now, but it's dated. A lot of it dates back to the 1960s. So just bringing it to the modern era, and a lot of the equipment down there has served us well, and it doesn't owe us anything, but I don't want to tempt fate and keep using old equipment. As far as the budget goes, as I mentioned in the other lines, almost every line I kept flat. I didn't increase anything other than the contract required pay increases for staff. And there were a few lines where we did increase. I can point those out if there's any questions, for new testing that's required by DOH at the water plant. I'll start with sewer 1. Like I said, everything's flat across the board. We haven't increased anything other than the staff pay that was beyond my control. Any questions? Okay, sewer 6. All right, actually, sewer 1 revenues. They're based on number of units and the rate that is applied per unit. It's only slightly, and there are some additional units, and there are new construction in town. Any questions? Nope. Okay. Good. So sewer 6. As with the other lines, I kept it as flat as possible. And in fact, once I finished going through and kept it flat or reduced it slightly, I did cut an additional $68,000 out of the sewer 6 lines.
Well, thank you, Matt. And I know you made significant cuts last year as well.
We
so.
maintained the 4%, and then on top of that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, pointing it out. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. You're the big winner.
You're going to be able to continue that, you think?
We have to increase rates. COVID did have an impact. A lot of the General Electric and Knowles, by shuttering and going home, we did lose some sewer revenue from that. And there are costs that we can't control. Chlorine, that's gone up. So as of right now, somewhere between 5% or 5 to 9% of an increase for the sewer rate, which we could adjust between residential and commercial. So there's flexibility there.
So you saw a decrease with the bigger places like that, GE, as you mentioned. And, we know that that's tied to water consumption. Did that go up on the residential side?
It did, but not enough, because the sewer rates and water rates for the commercials are higher than they are for residential. And there's a lag because we bill half a year from last year. So we're already seeing it going back. It's improving. It has improved, but it's just the lag is what's getting us.
Nothing that anyone could have planned for.
No, it's unfortunate. Water one, similar situation. I kept everything flatted, except for, like I said, the additional testing at the water plant, as part of PFOA mandates now from the state. And that one I went back to after maintaining the 4%, I went back and cut an additional 65,000 out of the budget for that as well, across the water fund. Any questions?
Nope.
That's pretty much all I have, right? Any questions on anything water and sewer related? Nope. All right, thank you very much.
You really did, Matt.
Great job,
You
Matt.
had the most complicated budget by far.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Next, we have the town attorney's budget with our town attorney, Paul Briggs.
I wasn't down for speaking, can they speak? No, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Sometimes I know you're tired of hearing about the number of years I've been here in the town. And I just was thinking that I turned 70 earlier this year, and I know I've spent half my life working on behalf of the town in the town attorney's office, and probably most of my professional life I've spent. I think I'm coming close to 35 years here. But it's been an honor, and unfortunately, this past year has been a very challenging year. Maybe in those 35 years, one of the most challenging. We've had an inordinate amount of employee issues that have consumed my office. It seems as though our FOIL requests, which my office is responsible for, have just expounded exponentially. Is that the word? Whatever it is, it's a tremendous amount of FOILs that we're getting requests for. And the FOILs now aren't just for one document. They're for instance, we recently had FOILs asking for all the bank statements for many of the departments, which is a very consuming project for the town to put together. And the process, of course, is that once the department heads or whoever's responsible provides that information, my office or me has to review all that and make sure that they're appropriate to send out. So it's been a challenging year with all of that, combined with the fact that our full-time deputy town attorney resigned in the first half of the year. Thankfully, Elena Finnan was good enough to step in. She's been a wonderful asset to our office. She's provided me with the needed support that has allowed me to get a little bit out from under the consuming work that's been involved in this year. So I think it's been a good year. I believe that through the town attorney's office, we've resolved a number of difficult employment issues. I know one of my main projects or one of my main duties on behalf of this town is to manage risk. I looked at the lawsuits that have been filed against the town. There weren't any this year seeking money damages. So we've assessed risk and taken steps through my office to maintain the town in a place where we minimize or completely eliminate any potential exposure to the town beyond, and I'm talking about exposure that's not covered by our insurance policies. So that's been a good, and that's been a trend I've seen in the last couple of years. That's been a big focus of mine, is to try to minimize the town's exposures to that type of risk. And I think that our office is done a commendable job doing that, not just this year, but in the last couple of years.
I couldn't agree more, Paul. I think what you just outlined are really hidden taxes on our residents, whether it's the hours and hours or all the documentation that has to be compiled for a FOIL, the staff work that has to go into that from variety of departments in your department to lawsuits that we just don't plan for, whatever they are, a trip and fall or something else. And your office is able to manage those in-house. A lot of towns aren't able to do that. And you've really tackled all of these things very, very well and helped us try to at least manage it and understand the budget ramifications. So thank you, Paul.
And so looking forward, I want to talk about what my vision is for the town attorney's office going
Ooh.
forward, and particularly into the next year. We started out, when I first became a deputy town attorney years ago, there was a town attorney and myself. And then sometime in about year 15 or 20, we went to, and the town attorney and myself were both part-time. But at some point in time, we realized, and this is the point of me telling you this, we needed a presence here in a town hall. And then so the town attorney's office, with the approval of the town board, hired a full-time deputy town attorney to be present in the town hall. And I'm losing names, but I think Matt was our first one.
Matt Miller.
Then Elena, and then Alexis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a big assistance to the town attorney's office, and also to department heads that need to consult with the town attorney's office at different times of the day. I sometimes dread coming to the town hall for a meeting, because when I come, I'm here. I end up being here not for an hour, but for 3 hours. But that's part of the job, and I enjoy doing it. I wouldn't have spent this long if I didn't enjoy the process and working with the residents and the town boards. So my vision going forward is that I gave a lot of thought to whether we really need a full-time deputy town attorney, and I don't believe we do. Now that we've got some of the personnel issues under control, I believe that the town attorney's office can go forward with myself or a town attorney, whoever that is, and a deputy town attorney, part-time deputy town attorney. And by doing that, I know we save I think about $35,000 a year from paying a part-time deputy town attorney as opposed to a full-time deputy town attorney. And we also save the cost of all the benefits and the other things that go along with having a full-time employee. To accomplish one of the goals, though, going back to what I said, I'm going to explore and strongly explore that the town attorney's office has a presence in the town hall at least 2 days a week for a couple hours each day, say, thinking out loud, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 11. And that'll be announced so that department heads or anyone else that needs assistance from my office or the town attorney office will know that there's going to be somebody there at that time. I think that's especially, we're seeing a lot more work from the building department, a lot of enforcement, a lot of issues that require the town attorney's office input. That's become quite a additional obligation of our office. But I think that having a presence in the town hall at least 2 days a week for a couple of hours, I'm not sure how that's going to work. It's just a proposal right now, but I think that may be a solution to allow the town to move forward with just 2 part-time attorneys rather than the part-time town attorney and a full-time deputy town attorney.
So Paul, for those watching at home or in the back of the room, can you just walk us through what it is you do, right? So obviously you do, you just talked about the building department and things like that, but
So
how many other boards do you staff?
I'll give you my typical week or my typical month. So I attend all the town board meetings.
So all the committee meetings, you go to every committee meeting and
I go to every committee meeting. I'm the attorney for the planning board, and the deputy is an attorney for the zoning board. I do all the negotiations for the town with respect to labor negotiations. I review contracts routinely. I spend lots of times out on the road or around about the town, getting residents to sign sewer
Easements,
agreements,
yeah.
or going to park meetings out in the towns, or getting construction easements signed by residents. So it's a very consuming job. Those are just the few things I do, but I'm always getting, I bet I field 5 to 10 calls a day from different department heads needing assistance with just a question, or can we do this, or is it appropriate, or do we have the authority, the legal authority to handle this or do it this way? That's a large part of my time. And I've lately been spending a lot of time on foils. Most of all those foils come to my private law office downtown, and my secretary is just amazed at the number of requests that are made and the volume of it. I brought a file with me today that's probably 3 inches thick. That's 1 week worth of material that came in from the town that I have to review and respond to. Includes foils and letters and requests. So it's a very consuming job, but it's one that I relish doing and I enjoy doing.
Well, you're very good at it, so thank you. So is there anything in here? You mentioned the part-time versus full-time deputy town attorney. Is there any other highlight in here for us? Otherwise, we will
No, that's
give you our thanks and send you.
We're trying to keep everything pretty level from last year. It's pretty straightforward. I think that that's all I have. Are there any other questions?
Paul, thank you for your service. You have been a real asset to this town for the many, many years you have served this town. And I want to thank you for that. And it has been, we have gone through some difficult times, and you have always done the best that you can do for the town and the town residents. And I trust that you'll let us know when we need to give you help. You always do. And you've been very professional about that, and want to be able to keep it manageable for yourself and your part-time staff.
Yes, and Elena and I have a very good working relationship. She's more than eager to jump in when I need a legal question gets asked of me, and it's going to take me a couple hours to research it. She's routinely said, because our office policy is anytime any request is made of me, it's got to also be copied into Elena, so that she will often jump in and say, I can take care of that for you, she's a great help. She's a wonderful asset. She's smart and diligent and very knowledgeable. But thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Did Lorene hire you? That's the real question of the night.
Did you hire me?
Did you hire Paul?
I didn't sign up, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just had some general statement.
No, she wants to know if you hired me.
Of course we did.
I know.
And our dear friend Paul did most of the negotiations for the union contracts and things like that. And and he's still here.
My point is, we have you to thank. One more thing we have you to thank for, because we'd be sunk without Paul. So, absolutely.
I don't expect to go to his retirement.
Eric Dixon.
No, I wished I had his stamina.
I know. You do.
I was walking outside my office one day 30 some years ago, and Eric Dixon happens to see me and says, "Hey, would you like to be the deputy town attorney?" And I said, "Sure." So I talked to him, and I said, "Is there a retirement?" He said, "Don't worry about that. You don't need to get into the retirement system. We won't be here long."
Wow.
And here you still are.
But I finally got into the retirement system.
Oh, thank
I
goodness.
got to buy back all those years.
Great.
Well, thank you, Paul.
Thanks. All right. Next, we have the comptroller's budget.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
okay.
We'll
Let
take
Lorraine speak, and then.
Lorraine's going to say a few words.
Want me to get you the mic? Just get close to the mic. There you
I wished everyone would get close to the mic because unfortunately it is on, but I couldn't hear Lori. And I have lots of personal reasons why I think that department takes up a huge paperwork here. And I sometimes wonder why the budget for community services isn't a little bit more refined. I like bottom numbers of what departments cost. When it comes to our senior citizens, most, is that, who's the man on the, oh, I didn't see, oh, McPartland?
That's
Yes,
me, Lorraine.
yes.
Hello.
Why are you there and not over there? Yeah.
I'm always on this side.
No problem. I couldn't see your nameplate. The thing that I am concerned about here is every line I went through compared to the 20 budget has an increase. Some is a little higher than others. I find the controller's office, not only with the personnel the extra personnel that we have hired at very high salaries, has come with a new controller. Now, and I find that that's not very accommodating to people that are trying to keep taxes down and be a little conservative with what we've gone through, not only as a town, but as our own individual budgets. The other thing that when I was talking about the seniors have reduced an hour of 2 days a week that we have had the same programs for as long as I can remember. When we moved out from the old building on Union Street, it used to be the old post office, and we were lucky to get a home for the seniors. And one of the nice parts of that senior building was definitely because of the apartments on Eastern Parkway. Well, then with the Miss Di Cataldo, she had an opportunity to buy the old Girling Center for quite a bit of money. And it was always going to be this and that, and we still have the worst senior center. We have more maintenance out there, more problems in the building. I mean, as far as putting up the outside facilities, that's been fairly successful. It was a country club, so it did have some amenities. It has a beautiful second floor, which we haven't been able to use because of the pandemic. And I think that that's something that is worthy of either starting a fund for a senior center that all the other towns have a much better one than we do. And as I say, I'm very disappointed. I rarely go out there. A lot of seniors who are still driving, except after dark. The parking is not accessible. We don't like it in the wintertime. I know Frankie Gavin had a terrible time keeping the steps. These are hazards. This is something a lot more with buying sand and what have you, because I don't think our departments are as frugal as we are in our own homes. And I think that needs a review. As far as the certain departments, every department, and I went through it very quickly because I feel that the whole budget has a different tone to it. I don't know whose imagination that is. We always had a very good budget, and I assume that if we don't pass the budget, that this is the budget that we're going to get. Now, I want to thank the board in the state of New York because as a senior, I am very privileged of getting certain discounts. And I don't even know if a lot of the seniors realize that they have, they could get some exceptions with the taxes. Now, I assume this budget is still going to mean that Niskayuna town is the highest assessed, the highest county taxpayer, and I don't see where we played that down. We don't tell Rotterdam, although they know it. They know that let Niskiuna do it because they're the big taxes. Now they're going to reduce our taxes 1%. Hooray! And you're not going to raise taxes, but I guarantee you, you will raise fee service. And that's what I resent. I just got my water bill, and I'm one person, and my water bill is over $100. Now that sounds like an awful lot. What do people do that have 4 or 5 children in there? I'm sure they're paying quite a bit of money. We still have water breaks. We still don't have certification on our sewer system. And I think that those are very disheartening objects in the town. No one else is going to find the money. We have to find it, or we have to start eliminating. Now, we can't go ahead and buy every whim and wish that people want in this town. And I don't know, I don't talk to a lot of people who say, oh, yes, we need this, or we need a new truck, or we need, why don't we have some kind of savings program? But when I looked at this preliminary budget, there wasn't a department that doesn't have an increase. And how you're not going to raise a tax is because we're going to do it revenues in other areas. So I think this piece of paper really doesn't show the need for fiscal responsibility. I don't like the fact, and I did manage to say, the Comptroller's office alone is over $20 higher in just personnel, salaries, or whatever. I think the only thing they didn't have a higher increase was materials. So apparently we bought paper and stuff when it was cheaper. My point is that we've had budgets. When I first came here, I think the budget was like $7 million. And the supervisor's office was part-time. And so many other of the and we had residents only. And now we dicker and give people privilege to live in Saratoga County or in Rensselaer County. And I resent that. We had a full working department. Now I realize this is not the public hearing that will be coming up. And maybe this will be the budget that we're going to be looking at for the public hearing, or is there another budget coming? A more refined budget? Does anyone have an answer for that? The
I think so.
supervisor possibly?
The preliminary budget will be what's considered for the public hearing. So this is the tentative budget.
This whole concept with all the artwork here, I think is kind of interesting. And the fact that I assumed you met with every department head to figure out their needs. And they're probably were very interested in more this and more that. And you know it, and I know it. And how do you resolve this? You can say yes to the budget, or you can say no to the budget. But that's not good. It really isn't good. It isn't good to waste all of this paper and not have the kind of information that we normally have. And I do have a few of the old budgets that I think we ought to start putting up on the wall. This is the way it was. And right now, I think the big thing that I always feel terribly sad about is that Niskiuna, with its high costs and its high taxes and its high school ability to raise any kind of funds they want, because we have 2 different boards. We have a board that wants to spend and hopefully a board that wants to save. So we have 2 different people. And now we're getting an influx of school board members who want to come and work for the town. So it kind of confuses me. And we still don't, I would like us to think about residents get priorities. Now, you can't tell me in this town, in Schenectady County, we don't have qualified people to work for the positions available in the town. I'm not going to take up any more time because I left my marked budget at home, unfortunately. And I think it's still, yeah, the sun's out. But I want to thank you again because of the town and the good things you do. And you do good things, but you don't do enough of them. And every budget from the time you were here, Supervisor, we have had fund transfers. You take from sewer and water and give a little bit to the highway. So we're not getting an honest budget here because we load up on some of the departments so that we can take from them when we need it in another department. So whether we have a new controller or an old controller, somehow the controllers know how to manipulate these wonderful budgets. I did read where we're getting some more state funds, and I think you ought to bring that up. I think I just read an article where we're getting some more money. But we're not using it in trying to save and add to that pile. We're buying more and spending more. And as I say, when I think of Hall Briggs, you know that was in the 80s, just like Fran Wall, the first woman police officer that we hired. We hired McGovern's daughter. She was wonderful. And she got a terrible reception from at that time, the police. So you've done some good things to try to straighten out. And if that's in the budget, all I see are increases. And I would like to see a little bit more, whether you will have any more opportunity. I didn't realize this was your last forum. And now we're going to have, the next thing will be, is accepting this, or is the next budget will be the public hearing. And that won't be till after, was it the end of November, beginning of November, sometime around.
End of the month.
I've got the schedule. But I thank you very much. I am grateful.
Doesn't matter.
I am a recipient. And hopefully we'll have a good election.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorraine. So just to reiterate what the budget process is, every single year, and this is all enumerated by town law too, the supervisor submits the tentative budget by September 30th. I'm sorry, I'll try and speak as loud as I can. So the supervisor is obligated to submit a tentative budget every year by September 30th. Any changes that are incorporated into that budget by any town board member or the supervisor or anyone else is now considered the preliminary budget. So from this point forward, we're essentially now working on the preliminary budget. When we convene again for the budget public hearing, the public hearing will be on the preliminary budget. Any changes that are incorporated into the preliminary budget will be considered the final budget. And every year, final budget is due no later than November 20th. So this year, November 20th is a Saturday. I don't believe that we're going to be working on a Saturday. So we are planning that we're hopefully going to be adopting the final budget on the preceding Thursday. So it would be November 18th. So that's how the process works. And again, it's all prescribed by town law. So all of that is enumerated in town law as well. All righty. Well, next we have the Comptroller's budget with our Comptroller, Ismet Alam.
I don't know you.
I'm the Comptroller, the new one.
Well, as I said, we've never met. I think I've met some of your helpers.
That's
Okay.
But
But
Okay.
this is not the same format that we've had. We've done something different.
you're absolutely right. So what we wanted to do is we have added, we want the residents to know what the department heads do, what their dollar are spent on the services they are getting. So that's what gave the opportunity to all the department heads to talk about the achievement that they have had during COVID and also what their goals are. But Lauren, you are right. You motivate me. You really do motivate me. Because of the suggestions you made last year and this year, I've been here only for 1 year and 1 month, 1.5 months. So we have reduced a lot of the things, expenditure like health insurance, like and while providing the same kind of benefits, we have reduced almost $400,000 worth of expenditures.
I really don't want to take up the time.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Good evening. I would like to thank the supervisor for her leadership and vision, Councilperson McGraw for her wisdom, institution knowledge, Councilperson Bill McPartland, John Delarada, and Lisa Weber for the support and guidance. I've been here, unlike Paul, I've been here for 1 year and 1.5 months, but I feel that I've been here for 10 years. I also want to thank my NISKI team colleagues and department heads for their advice and support, their really true dedication to the residents, and above all, accepting me as part of their team. Obviously, I have to say thank you to my wonderful TUI team. There are only 5 of us. They are my backbone, and my biggest supporters, Janet, Frank, Nancy, and Margot. Who are we? We are your Comptroller's office. We are the human resources. We are the compliance, the area compliance, and the COVID safety office in one. We manage the entire fiscal and human resources for the town. Our goal is to bring the fiscal house back in order and also maintain that stability, and also invest in our human capital to retain and hire the best skill set, also the most motivated employees. How do we do it? We do different things. We work with the town supervisor, the town board members, and department heads to develop, implement, and monitor the town budget. We maintain all the town's accounting records for all business transactions, including cash receipts, cash disbursements, payroll expenditures, you name any kind of transactions. We are the owner of that. We make sure that the cash is invested properly to maximize our interest earnings. We administer the purchasing policy and monitor compliance with town and New York State requirements. We process payroll in-house for 4 bargaining units and 1 non-rep group of town employees. As human resources, we administer personnel policies for 4 bargaining units and 1 non-represented group of town employees. We administer self-insured workers' comp, health insurance, insurance plans, participate in contract negotiations, and employee associations. We also administered all the town insurance programs, including general liability, fleet, law enforcement, and crime coverage. We also have brought the grants management back in 2021. We are working with a highly efficient grant writer under the leadership of Supervisor and Denise McGraw, and I have to thank our town planner, Laura, for her advice and great work that she has done already. So what have we done right now? What are our achievements? Our first objective is to bring our fiscal house back in order, slowly but surely. And we are going to bring the credibility back to the town. Just in 2021, we saved over $202,000, actually $203,000, by doing different things over the low-hanging fruit that we did. Those are the savings in 2021. We are going to provide more savings in 2022 budget. We have provided close fiscal monitoring to make certain to provide the town leadership with accurate and timely information so that the town leadership can make well-informed and timely decisions. We have started providing the mid-year forecast for 2020 and 21. The 2022 budget is performance-based. And I promise, Bill, I will do the multi-year budgeting for you. In 2 months, I will provide you with that. What else do? We are the other kind of COVID heroes. The Comptroller's office was staffed every workday during COVID, and we did not miss any payroll, or our vendors are paid on time. What are our goals? This department's goals. Obviously, more cost savings. The budget that we have in front of you have almost $200,000 savings just in health insurance. And the voluntary retirement incentive that we offered, that has the continuing recurring expenditure savings of another $200,000. Okay, my team made me put down time clock implementation so we can avoid potential human errors. We are going to do again bids for the workers' comp, general insurance, and we are working on intermunicipal agreements. We have also, in the budget, we have added a part-time human resource specialist, but that is budget neutral. So we are not adding more expenses. We are just taking money from the consultant, HR consultant, and I'm stealing my supervisor's IT budget to start a new position. Okay, so I'm going to give you a general overview of the general fund, the expenses revenue for all the funds, instead of you going through every single thing. And then after that, I'll go over the specific changes in the department. As the supervisor has mentioned, that the 2022 tentative budget is fiscally responsible and a lean budget. There's not even an ounce of fat in it. Some of the highlights are that we stayed well under the tax cap. The budget, the tentative budget, does not appropriate any fund balance in the general and highway fund. Tax rate is 0 for the homestead tax increase. Last year it was, we increased the homestead tax increase by 1.8%. And above all, I know everybody wants to ask this question about the ARPA funds. We are very grateful for the federal government's distribution of much needed American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds, which have been utilized to offset pandemic-related economic impacts and to provide for the same level of services to our residents. It is basically a bridge provided to allow the municipalities to get back on their feet. Basically, ARPA money basically replaces any lost revenue from 2020 and 2021 on general government services. And per the ARPA rules, the definition of general government services is pretty broad, but it excludes replenishing any reserves, paying off debt, settling any court judgments, and or increasing the taxes. And we have confirmed that with the Association of Towns. So the general fund, the non-tax revenue has increased by $1.2 million. No fund balance use. Our expenses increased only by $427,870. That's the net revenue. Net revenue means that after you include the ARPA money of slightly over $1 million, you eliminate the reliance on fund balance and restoring the pre-pandemic revenue increases to mortgage tax, sales tax, franchise fee, as well as the recreation revenues. You heard from Lori that it was a very successful year. We have increased our recurring revenues, that means a year to year, that's a real increase, by almost $200,000. We have also managed to decrease our recurring expenses by over $253,000. So as you recall that we asked in 2021 budget, we asked for fund balance for general fund of $800,000. We have already recouped more than half of it. Okay. So going over what were the main revenue drivers were, the ARPA funds was about slightly over $1 million. Mortgage tax increased by 160,000. Recreation funds revenues about 27,000. Sales tax and franchise fee about 20,000. Pilots by another 12,000. I'm just giving you the big items. The license and permits increased by 11,000. We have our town field license revenue increased by almost 10,000 because of a couple of new agreements. The only thing that we decreased was the Justice Court Fund by 65,000. So altogether, this is only an impact of $428,000. What were some of the main general fund main expense drivers were? Once again, with any municipality, 66% of the increase in expenditures due to total comp, which means contractual negotiated salaries and related benefits and steps. That was about 283,000. We also brought staffing back to the pre-pandemic level for the police department, as well as a part-time human resources position, which is budget neutral. Some of the other expenditures that were increases for the retirement, which is not in our control. There was building maintenance of about 16,000. We added Lexapol. That was an increase of about 12,000. Our debt service increased by slightly over 10,000. Utilities, 3% increase. Those are the inflation-related expenditures that are beyond our control. However, our savings, as I mentioned, they are over 200,000, and there could be potential for more, and we will just bring it to the next finance committee to talk about it. Also, different title changes, the voluntary retirement incentive, those kind of title changes, shift differential that, as Paul talked about, that is about $120,000 for the general fund. Any questions about that? I know I'm talking fast. Okay. So going over my budget. That's on page 2. My personnel services have increased by 24,000. They are mainly because of the contractual increases. We have added a part-time human resource person, which is once again budget neutral. So overall, there's no impact. We have, if you go below, you will see the consultant services for human resources for 18,500. That's zero because that's folded into the new human resource person. Auditing is, next one is independent auditor, A001320. We have increased that by 3,000 because we know because of the federal funds, we are going to have OMB of A133 audit done. Any questions about that? I also want to, on page 6, I want to talk briefly about the Shared Services Administration is 001670 Shared Services, and on page 6. Our personnel services have decreased by almost 14,000 because we are not going to backfill Maura's position, who was the front desk clerk. So right now we have only one position in there. Any other questions about the general fund? Okay, thank you. Would you like me to go over the highway, sewer 1, sewer 6, or water, or you are? I know that other departments have already covered that.
They've gone over them, right? I mean,
think we're
was there
fine.
anything that we missed?
No.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I think that brings us to the end, correct? Unless I'm missing something, I think we are all set here. Okay. Does anybody have any other general questions? Okay. All right, well, just to remind everybody what the process is going forward, I'm going to bring up my calendar here so I can call out the dates. And this isn't necessarily representative of the budget process exclusively, but next Tuesday, we have our finance and agenda meeting. On Thursday, October 21st, which is atypical, we usually have our meetings on Tuesday nights. However, for the month of October and the month of November, we're having our regular meetings held on Thursday nights due to the fact that this room is going to be used for other purposes. So our town board regular meeting is going to be Thursday, October 21st. At that time, we're going to call for the budget public hearing. And then again, we're going to hold the budget public hearing. That's going to be a public hearing on the preliminary budget. That's going to take place Thursday, November 4th at 7 p.m. And then we will have our town board regular meeting on Thursday, November 18th, with the intent to adopt the final budget. So that's 2 days before the final budget is due to the state, or due per state deadline. Okay. So with that, I'm going to conclude our meeting for this evening. Everybody have a wonderful night, get home safe, and we will see you all next week.